Hi everyone, welcome to Hatch. Hatch is a 4-day innovation incubator that brings together energized creative professionals and puts them in the same room with mentors and groundbreakers across a number of disciplines. Hatch is all about taking ideas and turning them into bold actions. Hatch is also a nonprofit as well as an all-volunteer organization. I'd like to take a moment to thank our founding sponsors, the Grove Park Inn, Arc Printing, Intel, Moonlight Basin, and the Mountain Express. Thank you for your generous support. Also Skyrunner for providing Wi-Fi support at all of our events. Home Trust Bank, Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, North Carolina. Asheville Brewing Company, Runa Tea. We have a lot more sponsors. You can find them all in the back of your program. Also, be sure to check out hatchexperience.com for all the Hatch information and photos from around the events. So I'm going to take this time to turn this over to our moderator, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Tom Anton, and I am the discipline head of the film part of Hatch this year, and it's been a lot of fun and quite an honor. They asked me to help them out and get this thing going, so I've had a blast doing it. And this, part of what we're trying to do at Hatch is, with the films, we had 4 groundbreaking films. We brought 4 really well-done shorts in with the students that came in, and I see them here in the audience, and their shorts were just absolutely fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to see them, there's going to be another screening tomorrow. And in addition to that, we brought in some filmmaking people from all different avenues of the business. And I want to start off with Gerald Olson on the end, is a screenwriter in Hollywood, California, and is going to share some of his experiences. John Waldenberg is a producer, and his show is going to be shown tonight at 7 o'clock called Exporting Raymond, which is a really wonderful documentary drama you've got to come see, and John's going to be talking about his role as a producer. Sandy Anton is a writer-producer on the 2 films that I did with me, At Last and The Pardon, and she'll be talking about the role of a writer and producer on set. Blair Daly is an editor. He also happened to edit our film, and he has edited a lot of Barry Levinson's films, Man of the Year, Good Morning Vietnam, Bugsy, Wag the Dog, etc., etc. I think and then Robert Redford's Quiz Show. So Blair is just a tremendous editor, and we're thankful he came. And Danny Boudet, whose film premiered last night, and there's another showing this afternoon. In an hour, called 5 Star Day. And Danny was the writer-director of 5 Star Day, and 5 Star Day just got picked up for worldwide distribution by Inferno, so we're real excited for Danny's film to do that. So I wanted to bring in, and I'm going to let each one of them talk a little bit about themselves, of again, having a screenwriter, 2 producers, an editor, and a director, writer, and Sandy is a writer, to talk about their experiences and a little bit about themselves, and then I'm going to open this up to questions to let you ask the questions of the different people in the industry to find out any questions you would have on that. So I'll go ahead and we'll start with Gerald.
Well, that's actually a pretty good place to start with the screenwriter, but normally I would be hidden in a dark room somewhere, like trying to finish the script. It's not about starting, actually. For me, that's the hardest part. It's actually about finishing the script. You know, I moved to Los Angeles 5 years ago after a background in advertising, and I really think that, as a creative director in advertising, I really think that somewhere in me I thought that I would just be able to be left alone in a very, very quiet, simple little life, writing a script and then sending it off, and then the movie would be made. And that is the biggest myth that has been broken since I moved to Hollywood. Maybe I could be if I wasn't living in Hollywood, but the reality of the process is that I did write a script and I sent it out, and I was pretty fortunate early on to win a competition. And if there's any aspiring screenwriters out there or screenwriters that you know need a jump start to their career, I entered something called the Nichols Fellowship. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's the Academy of Arts and Sciences do it every year, and it's a pretty large pool of screenplays that get entered into there, and they narrow it down into quarterfinalists, semifinalists, finalists, and I was telling Tom that something happens if you enter that contest, and the day that they announce the semifinalists and the finalists, your inbox is completely flooded with agents, managers, all the same people that you've been trying to get a hold of for the last year, all of a sudden are trying to get a hold of you. And I guess I just tell you that because it's like they're in this business. It's like writing a screenplay, and a really good screenplay is only really the first step. What I've learned is that you have to actually find a way to get it out there. He agrees, or she agrees. You really have to find a way to get it out there, and that's about relationships. So you know, what I thought was going to be a really interesting, quiet little life where I was just going to write a screenplay and then it was going to take off, has actually become, over the last 5 years, has become a remarkable experience of connection and communication and collaboration. So I have, once that happened, I met the managers and the agents that were representing me, and then I was introduced to the town, which basically means you're the top 10 producers who will get your material or will respond to your material, who actually have relationships with the studios. The night before, your manager or agent will call them and say, we've got this great new script, this great new writer coming out. It'll be on your desk in the morning or through the email now. And then the next day, they read it, and all throughout the day you start getting the feedback. So it's like what could have been like 4, 10, 20 years of writing, actually in one day you know the outcome. And this is not the independent film cycle, this is actually the studio film cycle. So there are a lot of different ways to do it, but this was really how I entered the business. And I literally was like, the night before, I was like, this is it. Like, you know when they talk about winning the lottery, it's like, this is winning or losing the lottery. So I thought. What happened as a result of that is that I met with a lot of these producers, and I did sell the script to Universal Studios, which was really, really lucky. It was really pre-strike, so it was when they were still buying. It was when the spec market was alive, and you actually, as a writer, could send a spec script out and actually get a deal. So I was one of the last people to go through that. The benefit is that I got to go through it. The negative is that when the strike hit, after the strike, the market has changed completely, so every writer had to reinvent themselves. And you know what the truth is that every time I start a script, I have to reinvent myself. That project has since gone through the hands of a couple producers, but it's still at Universal Studios, and it's now in the pipeline for greenlight again. That's been 5 years. So you know, these things actually, it happened very quickly, but the movie has not been made yet. So that's one scenario. The second scenario is that the piece of material that I sent out, I was introduced to a couple directors who wanted to direct it, and as a result of that, I had to start building relationships with, I didn't have to start building relationships with the directors, but the instinct to be a writer and to actually be alone and be solitary, which is what I thought I wanted, that instinct is actually not an accurate or healthy instinct in the business. So what I started doing at that point was meeting with directors, and one thing leads to another, and whenever you're in a room with someone who's in this filmmaking business, you never know how the meeting is going to go. It actually could be this script that gets taken forward, but it actually could be something else that comes up. So the idea in the room, which is something that's talked about a lot, the idea in the room is so important. Certainly for me, I think it's one of my strong suits, is to be in a collaborative process. And not to be so attached to what was on the page, but to actually be open to what the collaboration process begets. Which is, I think, what Hatch is kind of all about, is that being open to whatever the connection is. And as long as the connection feels right and intuitive, and you enter the room, which is what I've been trying to enter the room as a human, instead of as, a screenwriter or as a producer or as a director, whatever the hat you think you're wearing is, it's actually been pretty fruitful. The situations where it hasn't been, I've learned a lot from it, because just because someone has a great resume and has worked on movies that you absolutely love does not mean that there's going to be a connection. And it actually doesn't even mean that they did anything on that movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, people have their names on movies, and it's like, they don't. What you see is not the actual reality, and that's been my experience for sure. So I developed a project with a director, and we collaborated on it, the idea, and then I've written the script. And so now that it's in the director's hands and his agent's hand to get that produced. The third thing that I've done, which has been a really interesting part of the process, is while meeting people in the room, I formed a relationship with a producer who I really respect, and we spent 2 years just back and forth talking about ideas, collaborating. I mean, eventually we got in the room, we had an idea that we wanted to work on together, and so we worked on this project. I've written it, and just Monday before I came here, we're very close to getting an actress attached to it that actually could bring it to production. So it's more of an independent film. So it's interesting. I've been there 5 years. I haven't made a movie yet, but I've got really good learning. Whether these movies get made, I've got really good learning in terms of how the collaborative process works. And I tell you, none of it has to do with sitting in a quiet room by myself. That's the beginning process, but that's not the end result. In my experience, that's not been the end result. But I will say the hardest thing is hatching the actual script. Like, before I send it out is the most painful process, because I know I have to actually let it go. So that's a little bit of kind of what my process has been as a screenwriter.
Okay, John?
I'm John Waldenberg. My path to this business is very non-traditional. I didn't go to film school. I did grow up around this business. I had a relative that worked at William Morris for 4 decades. So I got to walk the halls of William Morris as a kid, and I kind of grew up on the set of the Carol Burnett show, if anybody remembers that show. And that was really a joyous period for me, and that was the bug that bit me. But then I went on as a young guy. I didn't have any money, and so every time someone offered me enough money, I'd take a job. It might not be in the movie business, and it diverted me a little bit, but I always wrote. I went to Michigan, and I was lucky enough to be at a school where 2 well-known screenwriters went, also William Goldman and Lawrence Kasdan, and they had come back and did 2 seminars. I took seminars from both of them. It was my lightning strike. They both picked me, and that really inspired me to become a writer, and I started out as a screenwriter. And I wrote lots and lots of movie scripts and worked on lots of scripts for them and for myself when I was in college. Came out of college and went to work on the Today Show as a writer. And I wrote for the Today Show and Dateline, and we did some of our own TV specials. This is in the 90s. And then the internet came along, and I got lured away to run an internet company with Apple. And I left television, even though I loved it, because I really enjoyed working with my partner. We had creative freedom, did whatever we wanted. We had, all we had to do was supply a tape, and we wrote interstitials for Today's Show, and it was a joyous period for us. But this internet phenomena was too much for me to pass up. They offered me a lot of money, and it was very exciting. I was young. And I ran this company that aggregated affinity-based groups that exist online, and that experience has actually come back to help me as a filmmaker, because right now there is a heavy reliance on building your audience some fashion, mostly right now online, through social media, through some of the viral techniques that don't require that you have a huge P&A and put up billboards in every major market and have radio and television going constantly. It's more reliant on the filmmaker, and that now has become very important to me. I left the internet because someone gave another guy and I $240 million to make feature films. This is at a time when hedge funds and investment banks were trying to put out money, and the film business was very attractive. It's not as attractive today for them, but we made a lot of movies, and that's how I made much bigger pictures. So I have 2 lives, kind of the studio life where we had all this money and we were partnering with lots of studios. We made movies like The Visitor and Smart People and Mysteries of Pittsburgh and Milliken and Foreman. And then there was the independent world, like this movie. Even though this is Exporting Raymond is a movie that is funded by Sony and distributed by Samuel Goldwyn, it qualifies as an independent film because, 1, our P&A is almost 0. I mean, not 0, but it's very low. And it's heavily, heavily reliant on us being hands-on. And there are many different types of producers. I became a producer because someone gave us money, and that makes you a producer, whether you want to be a producer or not. So I became a producer, but my passion has still been in writing and working with great writers. And I've been lucky to work with a lot of great writers. In this particular case, Phil Rosenthal, who created the show Everybody Loves Raymond, is one of the most talented storytellers and writers I've ever encountered, and that's made this a very special project for me. So I'm the type of producer that's very hands-on. I'm in every mix. I work on picture and sound, color correction. I'm very involved in the story development and the script, and I'm particularly involved in the endings for scripts. And so I am probably more dangerous as a producer than many other producers because I know enough to be dangerous, and I'm not an expert at editing. I'm not an expert at working on Pro Tools, but I know enough. And so I can go in and talk and raise red flags and be involved, and that's fun for me. It's more hours, but that's why I love being in this business. The small independent films are maybe a lot more fun for me. I pay my bills with bigger features, but I love working on documentaries and independent films because in the world that we live in, I think that there's been a loss of the romantic element in this business, why we're all in this business. Everyone doing it for the same reason, because they love the story. They want to get it on screen. They want to communicate a message to an audience, and it's not about the money. So that every dollar raised is a critical dollar. Every success is a shared success. And when you finish the movie, your credit card is maxed, your mortgage and your equity lines are gone. You have nothing in your checking account, but you've got your movie. And I think that's part of the romance that really got me in this business. And while I still do the movies that pay my mortgage, I particularly enjoy working on movies like Exploiting Raymond. And in this particular case, it has been a battle because even though I've made bigger features and Phil has done something that has made him a Hollywood legend, it's still a battle to get screens, to sell to exhibitors, to get audiences. And in our case, we have a documentary that's really a comedy. And in the documentary world, most people, when you hear the word documentary, you kind of tense up and you think, I'm going to slit my wrist at the end of this movie. Even though it's a great story, it's about, homeless or HIV/AIDS or child soldiers, and they're very compelling stories, but they are very tense. And when you have a comic documentary, most people don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to market it. And in our case, Sony does not do small pictures, and they certainly don't do small documentaries. So they have not been as much a part of the process of marketing this movie as you would normally have if you had a big picture. So it's really fallen on us, and we've done a lot of the social media with Facebook, with Twitter, with Stumble Upon a program, with viral promotions, and with a lot of Phil and I going out and sitting on panels and showing our movie to students and showing our movie to retirement homes and showing our movie to anyone who will see it and talking about it and trying to excite them about the idea that it's going to open and bring your friends. And I think that's part of my job as a producer, and I'm sure Sandy will probably concur that it's basically guerrilla warfare from day one when you have an independent film, trying to get people not only aware of your movie, but motivated to go to the film the first weekend, because in our business, it's reliant on that opening weekend. So I have got a permanent ulcer until April 29th when our movie's released, and then those 3 days, we need to fill seats no matter how we do it, because all the exhibitors, no matter how good your movie is, are sitting there watching the numbers per screen. And if it's high enough, they'll buy it and expand. And if it's not, your movie will slowly shut down, and then it takes a different path. And, we're opening, for example, against Morgan Spurlock's movie, which has got, I don't know if anybody knows about Morgan Spurlock's movie, but it's called The Greatest Movie Ever Sold, and it's got picked up by Sony Classics, who's kind of the wicked stepchild of Sony, and they don't really talk. That's also an interesting phenomenon in this business. We actually used Sony Music in our movie, but Sony Music doesn't talk to Sony Pictures, and they don't talk to Sony Classics, so there's really not a great collaboration between all those people, so we had to fight our own battles. But it's a battle getting people into theaters that first weekend, and that determines the path for your movie. I know that Inferno picked up, your picture, and now the battle is how are they going to market it, and how are they going to get people in seats. And I think that that's kind of the role that I play, is not only getting the picture from a script to completion and then delivering it, in my case, to Sony, but now making sure the distributor does their job for marketing and making sure that we supplement it with all the online and viral marketing that it requires to get people in seats. And then taking it past that for international, and we're already focused, for example, on our DVD release in August and our Blu-ray release and our online program. I mean, it's a never-ending battle. So I'm kind of a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day guy, and I love the business, but it comes with nothing but migraines.
So I'm Sandy Anton, and I'm the other half of Tom. And when, the better half, right? And when he was talking about the romantic side of filmmaking, that is pretty much why both of us are sitting here. The first film that we did was called At Last, and we shot that when we were 50. So I sort of wanted you to do this with me because you're good story. He's a better storyteller than I am, and it was a very collaborative process. So if you start just at the beginning at the 40-year-old, sort of doing the script thing.
Should I edit it?
And then you can do the editing part, because we sort of all go together with our two films that we did, At Last and The Pardon, and sort of feel like it's a collaborative.
We're not going to talk about the credit cards, though. But Phil is so right. It's John and Jerry and Sandy. It's like it is the passion, and we both came into this. I never went to film school, never been on a film set. Knew my whole life this is what I wanted to do, and researched the film industry. I was in business and sold my business and spent 10 years really trying to understand the business in terms of distribution, sales, production, directing, all the different things that I wanted to do. And we were very fortunate that we raised funds to shoot our first movie. And the biggest thing I can say, and I'm sure Jerry would concur, is with one of your first stories, make sure you have a lot of passion and know that story. They say write from something you know for your first project or other projects, but that's basically what we did. And we went the route that was not the studio route, but the independent route, where we made the film, we shot the film, we finished the film, and then entered film festivals. And we thought, well, this is going to be the way we're going to do it. We're going to go out there and go across the country. We went to 18 film festivals. We won 4 or 5 festivals. We thought, this is fantastic. And then you go to the studios and say, look what I've won. And they're like, okay. And in our particular case, it was basically they felt that the story wasn't marketable enough to a larger demographic. And so we basically said, okay, and we pulled the picture, and we've sat on it for a while, and then we got into another project, and we were also, it was a little bigger budget and bigger cast, and now we're in post-production on that. But
so I think personally, it's more like on-the-job training. I think you really learn a job by doing a job, and so the first one that we did, I was the on-set writer, so as there was changes that needed to be done in the script for that day, for whatever reason, I would do that. But you learn all aspects of it, and I could really relate to what John was saying, that when you're there on set, you have your hands in everything, and everything comes together to make that film what that film is. And you really have to rely, well, first of all, hire people that are very good at what they do, i.e. Blair as well, and but you have to trust them that they know their craft too. And you have input, but all of that together, working together, is what makes a film good. And it also makes the people feel like it's part of their possession or their baby too. Like everybody wants it to work out and to end up, a good film.
And I think the other thing too is passion is everything. we were only able to get, with our first film, we got Roberto Schaefer as our cinematographer, and he had done Monsters Ball, he had done all of Christopher Guest's movies, Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman. He had just finished Finding Neverland, and we got to him and sat down, and his first questions to me is, how many movies have you made? And I said, none. And he goes, well, have you been on a film set before? No. And, and he said, well, send me the story. I sent him the script. He loved the script. We talked, and I think he saw that this was a passion, that it meant everything to us. And it just went from that point on. With the cast, we had a great cast. We ended up with an unbelievable Academy Award-winning crew. And these people, and I think like John said, they believed in us. It wasn't about the paycheck. I'll never forget Roberto said, at that point he was making about $35,000 a week, and I said, I can pay you two. And so, and if his manager agent is like, why are you taking this film? But I think he believed in us, and there are people in this industry that are successful, have made a name for themselves. When you get to them and they see your passion, and it's a good story, and I believe it starts with story, but they see you're putting it all into it, it does go far. You can get in front of the right people and make that happen. And I think we were very fortunate with our first film and our second film. We got a much bigger cast, and getting an editor like Blair Daly to edit the film and to get it. We did all our post at Skywalker, and we got into doors that I think people, again, related to us as these people believe in what they're doing.
And I also loved what John said, too, about, I love that you came from script, because it is always story, and so he can look at that and identify something good, but about the ending, that, I always leave a movie, and the ending really makes the movie for me. I mean, I feel like it was a better movie all the way throughout if they get me at the end, And so I love that we're all aspects of it, because then you bring more to it. But the second film that we did, actually took us, how many years after we finished that last? Like 5?
Yeah.
Like about five years. And again, it's independent, so we raised the money to be able to do this. And the disadvantage that we have is that we have a product in the end, but no distribution deal. So then you're doing festivals, you're trying to get it in front of people. They have no vested interest because they don't have any money into it. So, I mean, it's a really tough place to be, but at the same time, that independent film, your passion is what makes it so good as well, and makes it worthwhile, and you can feel good about your name on it, and so it's sort of this catch-22 thing. It'd be nice if a distributor gets on board early on, so you don't have to fight that battle. But there's battles all the way along, and there's definitely was with the second shoot. There's money issues, and you're just putting out fires all the way along.
There are still battles when you have a distributor.
Yeah, you just battle with them.
Different battles.
Yeah, different battles.
Yeah.
I want to just jump in on the importance of the ending, which, like I said, it's the hardest thing to write, because when you're crafting a piece, it's all the things that you've planted in the beginning of the story. You want to make sure that you bring them together elegantly and emotionally. It's like the term that's used is, does the film land? When someone reads the script, does it land? And you think of it's like you're putting all these balls up in the air and all the conflicts, and it has to land in a satisfying way. But the thing that I'm dealing with right now, because I've just sent out this new script, or we're just getting ready to send it out, and the first 5 pages, like the beginning is from when it's on the page, as you probably know, producing, it's like the first 5 or 10 pages, it's so important. It's not even important what the movie is going to be, but like the people that are reading the script from a studio standpoint have so many things on their desk and on their pile. And there's weekend reads, and it's like they've got to report what the scripts that they read this weekend are. And it really, truly, it's like you've got to use advertising and marketing to a certain extent to know that the setup of the movie, the film, yes, but also the screenplay, the movie and the screenplay is so clear to the people that are reading it. And this is not about actually making a good movie. This is actually just about the business of getting your script read and getting attention to it and getting it through the pipeline.
What I notice so much in movies now, and television as well, they start out at a high point, and then they say, 3 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 days ago. So somebody's getting killed or something big is going on when you first watch the first 5 minutes, and then you get into the story because I think they're afraid if they start out too slow, it's not going to be interesting.
Okay, Blair.
I'm Blair Daly. I see some faces that were over at the workshop yesterday. Thanks. I enjoyed it. Hope everybody else did. I'm sitting here reflecting and listening to it. I'm going back to when I started a long time ago. Started Disney film shipping, basically. Just lugging films up from my cars there to take a look at. That was about it. And the journey all the way to the end and working with Sandy and Tom and coming through here, it's just been a great ride. I'm convinced I have the best job out of everybody up here because that's what I love to do. I'm sure they'll tell you exactly the same thing. The more I hear about the money, the more I'm glad I'm in the cutting room because I see the pain that everybody has to go through, especially on the smaller independent movies. The studio movies, they have big money, they back it. You never hear any of that. In a cutting room and things get tight and on an independent movie, it wakes its way back into the cutting room at some point. But typically, you just get to close the door and work on a movie. And that's my passion. That's what I love to do. Love to tell a story. I look at it as you have 3 chances to tell the same story. The writer writes it, we have the screenplay, the director shoots it, and then you come into the editing room, that's your last chance to rewrite the script. And I just can't imagine doing anything else. I just enjoy everything I do about it. And working with Sandy and Tom, they've kind of brought me into a little bit more of it and getting a little bit more involved in some other things. I'm finding that fun. Frustrating. It all seems to be centered around money, but once you get past that, it's a blast. So I should stay in those finances classes in college. Because it was like I just ran from the door. They wanted me to do debit, credit, window, door. Don't care. Let me get out of here. But I started when it was on film, and I used bud splicers, and I always looked at it as a craft. I thought it was more of a craftsman. And I still do to this day, even though the tools are different. It's just it's a craft of telling a story. Unlike a writer who has to pull it out of thin air, which I think that's creative and artistic. I think editors is more of a craft, taking something that exists and reshaping it to try to tell the best story it is. So I see that as what an editor does. That just kind of fits my personality. I'm happy being behind the closed door. I'm happy being behind the scene. I have a relationship with the characters that I end up working with on the film. I feel like I'm in their world. Once you get sucked into the process, you get sucked into the story.
He knew every line that came out of Robin Williams' mouth. Good Morning Vietnam.
I was good at parties for that one, but then I get Rain Man. I wasn't good at parties because 9 months you live with this, and you just do it from beginning to end because you're just constantly going over that stuff. And he had some good jokes that didn't make it in their own cutting before, so I used those and claimed they were mine. The business, you have, it's so varied. It can be money guys, it can be creative people, it can be writers, it can be editors. It just encompasses everything. And at the end of the day, when you get to the finish line, everybody's involved with team. Any one of those little links that's missed, it'll reflect itself. And the other thing that I really like about editing is I get to see everybody else's work. So everything that they do shows up on film, and I get to see it the next day after they've done it. Plus, I don't have to be on the set for 12 hours. I get to look at it in a half hour the next day. That's everything they do. So that part of it I really enjoy. I just love working with all the material and stuff. And the downside is when your wife calls you and says dinner's going to be ready at 5:30, you say, okay, I'll be there. And then the phone rings again. It's midnight. I'm going to bed. You never left the cutting room because you're just immersed into the project. You just lose all track of time on concept. So everybody says, oh, it's great to go on locations. You're going to be all over the world. You're great. I said, I could be in the south of France. It doesn't matter. I'm in a room where the windows are closed. I have no idea where I am. It doesn't matter. I told Tom, I used to cut in a trailer that they would drag along in my truck and drop it. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're in that world. And that's where I find the creative ability to enjoy myself and the relationships that you have with the different directors that you get to work with. And it's just a fun ride. So if you're interested in the film business, it's like, just do it. Just jump in there. Go into the deep end. Doesn't matter. You'll figure out how to swim.
On that note.
Yeah. It's Mark Spitz.
I definitely agree with John in that it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week. If you can do anything else, almost go do it, because it's like it's very tough. My name is Danny, and my background is I went to AFI for grad school, and I got out in 2005. And the reality of the business is, even as a director who's getting out of a pretty prestigious program, your thesis film is your initial calling card that you kind of get out there and get kind of introduced to the town. And then you go try to get projects developed. And I got kind of lucky. I got some scripts developed through the studio system at the time that are still in various stages of development. And I had to write for about 3 years. I graduated in 2005 from AFI, and I made a living as a screenwriter for 3 years after that, rewriting, polishing other people's scripts. Ghost wrote a couple scripts. And then in 2008, I wrote a script that finally got traction, got some cast and funding, and that's the film that's screening in like 20 minutes. And
5-Star Day.
yeah, it's called 5-Star Day, and it's been on the festival circuit.
How did you get funding?
That's the magic.
Yeah.
Those are these magic. It's all been about money, right? It's all about how do you find the funding. I had a very unique situation that a private equity financier who had never gotten involved with the film industry yet, but had made a significant amount of money starting Priceline.com. And I had sent the script over to them, and he was interested in starting, to become a filmmaker. And they liked the script. His wife really related to it as well. I think that was a big deal, and that's how that finance came up. But normally, that's a very rare situation.
So it's interesting that the people we have up here from the studio system and independence, and an editor who's done independence, a filmmaker with an independent. So you have an opportunity here to ask any questions of what they do, how it relates in the business. So I'm going to throw it out there to ask anyone that has questions for them. Any questions? Yes?
Going from budget into independent film, because the money isn't there, you kind of, towards the middle of the project, some people fall out. I'm sure you've seen that. How do you from budget to independent, do you do the same contractual papers?
I do.
To keep them in? Because once you have those people on board, it's hard to replace them.
You're talking about like cast members specifically, or?
Cast
Production people and cast.
I would say, you don't always keep them, but most of the people working on independent films are in it for different reasons. And so they want to finish the film. When in the bigger pictures, it's really heavily reliant on contracts, but even when it is, there's this strange dynamic that if they don't really want to do what they were contracted to do, it doesn't even matter. We did a movie, and one of the stars, who was an A-list star, was under contract, and we were going to shoot several endings, and he decided he didn't want to shoot any endings. We could have forced him to do it, but this particular star is not a real collaborative guy.
Names. Maybe I know.
And if we forced him to do it, we felt like we were going to be wasting our money to get him back on the set, so we decided not to do it. If someone is unhappy, they're unhappy, and then you've corrupted the process. And so, my view has always been, if you're unhappy, you don't want to be here, maybe we need to make a change. We all have to want to get this story on a screen and get it to the right place. Now, it's funny because this business I love the creative side. That's my passion, but it is a business. This is a widget business. The widget is a story. You have to manufacture the story, write it. You have to create it. You have to manufacture it. You have to film it. You have to package it. you have to market it, just like you would market if you would create a chair. And there are still business decisions that play a strong role in the process, even as an indie film, and you have to remember that it includes all of these processes. Even though my passion is in the creative side, you have to keep in the back of your mind that you've got to finish the film, and how are you then going to market it? Because marketing, even you raise money to make the film, that's a fraction of the battle. Because now you've got to find the money to actually market the film. Because even if you have a distribution deal, if they're not going to put money behind it, you may as well not get it out there, because you're going to be up against films that have billboards and ads and are going to be suffocating your film in the box office, and you'll do an Academy run in New York and LA, and it'll go away. And you don't work 3 years on a film or 5 years on these documentaries to want that to happen. So you need to, and that's why the internet and is so amazing for the film business, because now a lot of that you can do on your own. A lot of that you can generate the interest in the audience, and a filtered audience, because oftentimes you'll get people marketing your movie to the nation, and you're like, I don't need the nation to come to this movie to be a success. This is a very specific movie, it has a specific audience. You can go online now and address that specific audience. I did a small documentary on breast cancer. Well, not everyone's going to want to see that. So we marketed to hospital organizations and survival groups, and to the AARP, and to people that may be exposed to this issue. I don't have to market to kids that are 18 to 24 for this movie. And now you can do this in a much more profound way and a free way, which for indie filmmakers is very important. So I don't think that you can, I think contracts, like anything, are only brought out in times of divorce. But the truth of the matter is that you may not, many documentaries lose funding, then get funding in the last 4 years. And you just may not have all the same people, but usually you retain a lot of them because they have a passion to get that story on screen, and you're not going to lose them for money. You will maybe in a studio picture, but you may not in an indie picture.
So you like the documentary route more, would you say?
I love the documentary world. The question is whether I can pay my bills in that business.
And I'm going to touch on one part of what you said, though. It is still contingent even in the independent world. Even though I had a private equity investor, this guy made his money by being a smart businessman. It's not like he was like cutting a blank check and going, go make a freaking movie.
Right.
It mattered that we had talent that had international pull. It still mattered to them that it had a certain, it was cast contingent, the funding and a lot. And that's even in the independent world. If I wanted to make this movie with no-name actors, I wouldn't have had the funding. So there are definitely steps that still you have to do, even in the independent film world, to be able to get seen.
Even in the studio world, when we raised the $240 million, we had certain things that jump-started a film. It had to be certain actors, certain directors, certain cinematographers, and these were kind of things that we compiled. And again, it dealt with marquee value, international appeal, things that we knew we could pre-sell and reduce our risk. And we were, unfortunately, we had to answer to people that weren't in the film business, that don't really know the film business. So that was an extremely unpleasant experience on a regular basis. But you really have to kind of reduce your risk as much as you can in packaging your film. And you're competing, the indie world competes with, we have money, so I get these spreadsheets from CAA and ICM and William Morris Endeavor that have scripts attached that have been screened for things that I want to do, and they are fully attached with talent.
Wow. And
with the talent that I've specified. And then they send it to me, then I pick the things that I'm interested in, then I weed out from that, and then I kind of play with the parts. And that's where we start. For the same dollars that I would be doing an independent film. So you compete a little bit against the packaged world where every agency is trying to get work for their talent. And they'll do a lot of the legwork before they go out if you have money. And on the independent side, we start from scratch. We find a great story, and you have to do everything, and it just extends the period. It's very difficult. You go the festival route, and there's no guarantee. And you can win festivals all day long, but if they don't see that you've got talent that they think will attract an audience, or if they don't think that they can market this the way they want to market it, it doesn't matter. It's a fight. And that way, right now, there are all sorts of very interesting distribution models that are being developed. I was in London and in Tel Aviv, and they were talking about a new tablet distribution model where they're going to sell subscriptions for an opening weekend. So they'll sell 200,000 tickets at $50, and 50,000 will be available the Friday opening, 100,000 Saturday, 50,000 Sunday, and you could log in one time. You could show it to 50 people if you want, but they'll sell 200,000 for that opening weekend for a film. Then the next 2 weeks, they'll sell another 500,000 at $20, and then they'll open theatrically, with the theory being that these people will then become the P&A through just word of mouth for the theatrical, which is actually a great idea, because in our case, we're relying heavily on people that see our movie to be the ones that get other people to see our movie. And because that's the free viral element.
So I think what happened 2 years ago, film would stay in a theater longer, so it'd have a chance to get legs and get out there and get the word of mouth, a little bit of traction. But now it's gone so fast.
Well, when we were kids, and some of us were kids, there were less movies, so it was an event. Everyone went to the movies when a movie came out. Now there's 30 a week. I mean, if you blink your eyes, you miss the movie that you thought was going to be in theaters. And that's because you can take that Apple MacBook Pro that's sitting over there, and you can make a movie in your house with your handheld HD cam, edit it, and have a film that is truly, if you're talented, as good as a lot of the movies that make it into theaters. And so you can make a movie without a studio. You can make a movie without an agent, without any of the things that used to be required to make a movie, without all the big equipment. It's embarrassing how little the cameras are now, and what I used to pay to shoot movies. It's a whole new world.
There's a question over here. Yes.
Yeah. So a couple years ago at Hatch, I got some of the best advice, which was to make sure to finish. Right, was to cross the finish line. So I was sitting on 18 hours of high-def footage, and just now I've got my animator doing the title screen, and I'm going to be releasing sometime next week. So, 2 years later, I'm hatching. But what I've got is, now I'm sitting on, or I'm about to be sitting on my first project, sort of going, okay, well, what's next? Should I be looking for the next project right away, or I'm looking at the festival route, but after you get that sort of first portfolio, or you go to school, or whatever it is you do is that first knock, sort of what's the key for going into the world next? Is there a good step? Is there something not to do? Is there a great way to build your network?
Is it a feature or short, just so I can be clear?
It's a short documentary.
Documentary?
Yes.
John?
Well, my recommendation is put it out for free. I mean, you've got a billion people that go on the internet every day and make superstars out of people on YouTube, on MetaCafe, on blogs. I comb the internet for talent. And I got to tell you, I find a lot of talent on the internet. You could never find this talent before. But people go on, and good stuff gets recognized and gets spread around, whether you like it or not. And I say, throw it out for free. Give your work to the world. Let them see it. Let them weigh in on it. And if you truly are kind of connecting to an audience, they're going to take it to the next level. And the next thing you know, someone will be calling you up and say, hey, I noticed that you had 32 million hits on this video you put on YouTube. Can I talk to you about a project? Because that's happening all over the place. And there are internet stars. I mean, those Russian hand dancers have cut an insane number of deals, commercial deals, because of that one Russian video that they put out, which happened to be pretty good.
That's amazing.
And it's a calling card, short, and I think John's completely correct. Get as many people as possible to see it so that they can develop it into a potential feature doc or whatever or the next project you want to do. But you need to create some kind of brand to make you stick out.
Yeah, I'd also say, I mean, if you've got something as a calling card, it's amazing, but don't wait for that to take the next level. Like, develop the next couple ideas. I mean, we're talking a lot about passion, and you know, I found that I went to LA with one passion project, and I realized I'm passionate about a lot of stuff. I mean, really be curious about what kind of stories you want to tell, and broaden the range so much. Like, if you've made something already, you've got the initial steps of what your voice is and what you care about. But if you're lucky enough to get into a room with someone that can actually make something happen for you, the more ideas you have, the more things you're passionate about, because you're trying to make a connection with, you know, I've heard this a million times, you know, studios don't make movies, people make movies, right? So it's the people that you're connecting with, that you're going to be in the room with, that you can, if you can hit on an idea, or you can hit on a project that actually they can get excited about and get their hands into, then it actually will bring you further down the road. I mean, I think that that's super important to know, not to sell out, but to know the range of the things that you care about, and to have ideas when you go into a room and sit down with people, because it's a business of story, but it's also a business of ideas, how to execute those stories and how to take those to the next level.
As just a kind of a off-the-grid suggestion, I would say if you're charitable and you can scratch out some time to volunteer time for causes, this business is also heavily relationship-driven, and gaining the trust and the familiarity with people in this business oftentimes drives business. And I spend probably 30% of my time on nonprofits, and some of the movies that I've made have been developed through friendships and shared nonprofit passions, whether it's humanitarian in Africa, whether it's environment, which I'm involved in both. People will gain a trust when you share that passion, and they will learn who you are as your person beneath the album cover. And ultimately that will lead to a, hey, I know you write, you want to work on a project. And I think that is sometimes people forget that we are just people, and even though you write, you're submitting to someone who has had experiences in their life, and until you have some type of rapport, even if they accept it, they're going to want to meet you and say, I like this person, or I could really work with this person, I could develop and collaborate with this person. I think that's part of the process.
I'm going to go on one quick tangent with you, John, and say that a professor of mine at AFI gave me a piece of advice that I thought was like, oh, come on, give me a break. But in the last 6 years of being at AFI, it's been completely true. It's only 1 degree of separation in Hollywood with somebody who will actually help you and do you a favor. Meaning, you have to only know whoever you want to get to, and you have to figure out a way to get to them between one person of contact to you. So, like, you know, it never has worked that if I want to just shotgun a script out to 25 different agents, it's more find 5 agents that you think are the right fit for you, and find somebody who knows somebody who has a relationship with that person. Because it's all about the relationships, and they want to feel comfortable that they're not just getting a whole bunch of, you know, you look at a stack of spec scripts that somebody has in their office, and it's this high. What you want is your script getting handed to that agent by somebody who's a friend of theirs that they trust, and it's about that.
And don't be afraid to do things.
Is our time?
Yeah, we can continue the conversation downstairs in the breakout room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank them for coming. I mean,
Thank you.